Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Wolf Den presented by Win Again Academy. Join us today at 4 p.m. Eastern for another great networking event. Mark Moyer doing some great things with the Win Again Academy. Check out winagainacademy.com or any of my social medias, LinkedIn, for more information. Again, 4 p.m. Eastern today. Excited to speak with Aaron Eisman today. Welcome to the Wolf Den. We were just talking about your LA teams and the Dodgers. So big win last night. You said you might be going to the game tonight, but
Yeah,
you didn't mention anything about the other LA team who played last night.
yeah. Well, here's the interesting part. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I actually, it's kind of crazy. I grew up more of a Clippers fan than a Lakers fan, even though Lakers were like obviously the dominant team. Clippers were a little bit cheaper to watch. They were kind of to me the lovable losers growing up, watching like the Darius Miles and Elton Brand and Quentin Cupertino Mobley, Quentin Richardson, all these teams that I watched growing up. Dunleavy was the coach, so it was. I wasn't much a Lakers fan, but I did watch the Lakers game last night too.
Yeah, I did. I mean, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff, and I want you to introduce yourself. But is the Clippers window closed?
To be on the bandwagon, I guess.
No,
I
just to win the championship. I mean, I feel
Oh, to win
like
the championship.
they're kind of need to rebuild.
I,
I
the,
don't
the
think they're close enough.
The problem is they need one or two more pieces around Kawhi and Paul George, I think. You can't rely too heavily on those two guys, and then one of them gets injured or something happens, and next thing you know, it's like, what happened to the season? So you really need to hope. I mean, they didn't make any big time moves, so I wish they would have, made a splash in free agency, but they just didn't. Then they're hoping for younger players to really step in and step up, but we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
long season, right? Anything can happen. For those in the audience who don't know who you are, just give a quick introduction, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Eisman, born and raised in Los Angeles. I have spent the last 8 years in sports social media, working for companies like Turner Sports, Bleacher Report, and the NFL. Most recently, about 2.5 years ago, I launched my own social media consulting firm where I help athletes, sports agencies, tech companies, as well as startups in the space of digital marketing. And yeah, I that's been my passion project, I guess, for the last 2.5 years. But the real passion project has been writing this book, which has taken me a year long. It's coming out next month in November, and it's about the evolution of sports social media, which I can into a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a great place to start the evolution of sports social media, but really social media in general.
Mhm.
How did you become interested in social media? And obviously, it's been around for a while. It's much different now than it was even 2 years ago, than it
Yeah.
was 5 years before that. So when you first started working into it, how did you come about doing that?
Yeah, so it's for the people in the I think I'd call the early days of sports social media in the from 2010 to 2013, 14. There wasn't really jobs listed in sports social media. I came out of college with a journalism degree from Indiana University. I thought, I was like, what do I do with this? Do I work in the dying industry of the newspaper, which I loved growing up? And my dream goal was one day work for the LA Times. That was, be in the sports section of the LA Times. That was the goal. It's quickly changed to, started seeing more digital jobs open up in 2013, 2014. And I applied all over the country, as most people do in sports, for their first couple jobs. And I landed a position with Turner Sports to be a part of their first social media team, to run NBA on TNT, NBA TV, March Madness, as well as PGA Social. And that was interesting because I had no social media experience other than running my own social media personally. But I had a good writing background, which they liked, and I had some creativity and knowledge of that kind of space as well. And so that's what helped me land that first job. But really, it was kind of do I go this direction or do I go that direction? So I went more digital in my route, and it's been a great career for me thus far.
Yeah, a couple of things just to point out. I always laugh when I see the LA Times because my friend and I are always trying to rickroll people, and
Uh-huh.
a website where you can rickroll someone, and it kind of makes it look like it's the LA Times, but it's
Yeah.
a little bit of like there's an L instead of a or an I instead of an L. So I use that for all my Rickrolling. So if you want to Rickroll someone,
Awesome.
just Google Rickrolling LA Times and you'll get a nice template there.
That's awesome.
Turner Sports. I know we're getting a little bit away from social media. How are they able to have that work with their NBA people covering the March Madness, who they kind of don't really know what they're talking about, but they're so good at what they do? What did you see when you were working there?
In terms of the broadcast side,
Yeah,
everything. Okay, so yeah, they try to hire very specifically. When I was there, it was the NBA guys were NBA players that really knew their stuff. I mean, you could debate Shaq and Charles Barkley if they know their stuff, but other guys on NBA TV that I worked around, Isaiah Thomas and Grant Hill and Steve Smith and Brent Barry and all these names I got to work with, those guys really knew their stuff in terms of basketball. Do they know how to always communicate it and be a broadcaster? I don't know, but do they know how to talk about the game of basketball and the ins and outs of it? Most of them do, if they're not trained already how to do it. But on the other side, yeah, March Madness, it's it just depends. They normally take guys who just played basketball and they throw them on the stage. But have they watched college basketball all year long? Some have, some haven't. So that
that's
just
what I mean. Like Barkley, when they put the NBA guys like Barkley and O'Neal and Shaq
yeah.
on, they know a lot about basketball, but they don't know a whole lot about college basketball until they cram a couple weeks before it's going. It's still entertaining. I don't really care who's up there. To be honest with you, they've won awards and deservedly so. So it's good. So how do you, when you're doing social media for this type of
Yeah.
content? Are you involved with the people who are in the show, or are you just kind of like promoting and it almost doesn't matter what they do?
It's 90% of it's promoting the shows itself, promoting highlights, promoting anything creative, things that happen on set, stuff like that. We promote a lot. 10% is me, would be exchanging the content with the talent itself and saying, hey, did you need your 20-second segment you went off on in the B part of the broadcast? Do you need a social media clip for your social channels? But a majority of it was, the interesting part with NBA versus NCAA is NCAA. This is pre NIL days, so you couldn't when NCAA sells tons of money. I will say off of these college basketball players. Like we would have to do these posts on March Madness Social that would say like the player X heating up off of the Pizza Hut shot of the day, whatever it is, and you couldn't even make a reference to the player at all, their position, their number, anything. It would just be like nice shot, presented by Pizza Hut, whatever, because there was that such balance of what would work for the audience versus what would not give the player reasoning to affect their NIL. And now you can use players' names in sponsored posts and whatever you have. But like with NBA stuff, it was just, post whatever you want, have fun with it, use any captions you want. It was really a free for all versus NCAA was very restricted the way we posted.
Yeah, basketball March Madness time is going to be very interesting in regards to NIL, because there's going to be people making a lot of money
Yeah.
by their performance, which is not technically what it's supposed to be, but making a name for themselves means a little bit more than just getting highlights on
Mhm.
ESPN and whatever CBS, whoever's showing the games and whoever they're talking about.
Mhm.
Early on, what did social media mean to you? What were the platforms? What were you using?
Yeah, before I was professionally in it, I would say it started out, I don't know if it's social media, but AOL Instant Messenger was big. My handle, if you in my first email was Hoopstar ASE, which ASE is my initials of my last name. And I used it to communicate with friends, and I was like, "How you doing? What's up?" And stuff like that, because we didn't have phones until I was like in high school. So but when I was in middle school, I'd use AOL Instant Messenger to communicate. I use Facebook. I've had Facebook for uh, at least the last 13 years, I believe. So it's been a big part of my life towards middle high school, end of high school for myself. And then And then, yeah, MySpace, pre-Facebook, MySpace was the one that was, important. But in my book, I talk about these other ones called 6 Degrees and Friendster that people probably have never heard about, but it was big back before MySpace was a thing. So
I think I
interesting.
liked. I'd have to go back, but I feel like I thought that Friendster was better than MySpace. But I'd be curious how either one of them would be able to survive in today's landscape because I just don't know where they fit.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, Friendster, I believe, had 150 million monthly active users at one point, which is crazy to think because I had never even heard of it until I researched my book and talked to people about Friendster a little bit. But yeah, there's so many different. I mean, I've seen the evolution of social media itself over the last 8 years, where Vine was big for us at Turner Sports, and then it died out, and it's nothing now. TikTok has kind of replaced certain, parts of it in a way these days. But yeah, it's crazy how things change. The consumption habits of the audience change, their loving of certain platforms change, and their attention span changes too. So you'll learn all that in the book.
Yeah, I'm on social media a ton. I've been on social media before. I didn't use it as much before I started my business. I used it more for fun, and now I still use it for fun. But I use it for business, and it's important for me to have content out there. But well, I want to talk about each platform and kind of where you think it fits
Mhm.
in. And I'm sure if we don't want to give away too much of the book, but just sort of a higher level conversation. So for
Yeah.
me, LinkedIn is a great platform for me to connect with people, get content out there, but really interact with people.
Mhm.
I put Twitter below that because I can interact with people very easily on Twitter, although it's kind of a cesspool if you're a Gator fan like I am right now. It's wild what goes. The stuff that people write there is like, whoa. And then
Yeah.
Instagram, I post on Instagram, but Instagram is very visual and it's not a very two-way type relationship. You can comment, but there's not a lot of interaction going on in there. It's mostly, hey, here's my thing, take a look at it.
Mhm.
So, if you're a business, right, and you're a sports team, and it's going to vary between which league and what type, but where should you be concentrating and putting your more of your efforts into if you have to choose one?
Yeah, choosing one right now, I would say actually Instagram is number one to me, for a sports team. With It is very visual. I mean, people will try to DM you and comment and do all this stuff to try to interact with you, and some teams will, some teams won't. Just depends on their what their leadership thinks of how they should engage with people. But Instagram is the most visual one of them all. You could tell a story in multiple different ways, whether it's IGTV, a longer form vertical video, a Reels, which is shorter. It could be Instagram story where you're just kind of giving a day in the life type of stuff, or a post where it's actual just like a graphic or a video or something very simple stuff like that. So yeah, it's that's very important. And then sorry, one sec. Yeah, sorry about that. That's the mom's ringtone. Um, Sorry about that. So yeah, yeah, sorry about that. Just I sometimes do work at the parents' house, and then you have podcasts that do it. But to get back to the point, Instagram number one. I love Instagram. I think it's very visually appealing. It's just a great platform to use. It's very dynamic. And then number two, if I had to choose a number two, TikTok. I think people should spend a lot of their time on it because the younger generation loves it. It's an easy algorithm to use. You can build a following like crazy, and it's just vertical video, which is important.
But again, so let's talk about the difference between
Hmm.
content out there and sort of wanting people to see what you have, and then wanting to interact with your people. Like
Hmm.
for me, again, I can't reply with a picture on Instagram. It's
Hmm.
kind of clunky, the comments to try and fight. Twitter's, again, there's plenty of bad things about Twitter, but there's a difference between, and I almost liken it to on LinkedIn with, hey, let's connect, or
Yeah,
well, why don't you just follow me? I'm not interested in
for sure.
following you. I'm interested in connecting with you and having some type of engagement and relationship. that might
Yes.
differ between someone who's an individual and someone who's a team who's like, look, Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, Tom Brady, they're not interacting with you. Maybe if you've got a check mark, they might reply to it, but they're
Hmm.
not going to interact with you. So what's the advantage between the two?
Between LinkedIn and Instagram,
Well, the advantage between just putting
or
stuff out there and then kind
oh
of
yeah,
like, hey, I'd like to interact with you so I can actually understand who you are and
yeah.
and maybe get more interest that way.
Yeah, so Twitter, I would say, is more these days of building a community around. Um, Twitter these days are more of an interesting about a community. NBA Twitter is its own community of itself. For example, people will interact with each other and show their fandom and show their hate and disgust for other rival teams or teams that they don't like, whatever it is. That's your place for Twitter. It's really, I would say there's a lot of trolls on it. There's been trolls on Twitter since 2013 when I started in social media. There still is. But there's also a community of cool content that comes out because of it, cool, GIFs or GIFs, whatever you want to call it, that you can interact and react to different things that happen in the game. You can reply to major teams and get the conversation started that way. It's a way to build up a following because you just have to build this community aspect of Twitter versus LinkedIn. It's a very like 1v1 kind of aspect, I think, in terms of when you connect with someone, it's like, do you want to have a virtual coffee? Do you want to go for real coffee post COVID? Do you want to, learn about each other's businesses and stuff, or what you do, what I do? And that's why I think LinkedIn's one of the most underrated platforms
I agree.
because it's just so easy to connect with people and you could find people exactly in the industry you love. And if you're a prospective person that wants to, get into some company that you find interesting, just add someone, say, I really love to talk to you for 10 minutes. And the worst they say is no, or the worst they say is they don't reply, whatever. But at least LinkedIn, it's the opportunity to connect with someone in the job you like or in the company you like is there for the taking. So I hope that gives you a little bit of context.
From a sports perspective, and let's say sports business, because that's what sports
Mhm.
are. Sports are a business first. They're all a business. There's no sport out there that's not a business.
Yep.
Is there more value to them getting on LinkedIn and sort of do it? Because you don't see a whole lot of it. And now I see some players who are maybe more former players are saying, hey, look, I need to get on this thing because this is where a lot of business is being done. I don't see as many sports. Do you think there's more value to them trying to get on there a little bit more?
To be honest, I think it's more the ticket sales sports guys that should be on LinkedIn heavily. Um, I would use it as like a kind of connecting tool between a bigger company. Let's say, for example, the Dodgers want to reach out to someone from IBM to get ticket sales to say, hey, you want a suite this year. That person from the Dodgers can contact multiple VPs, at IBM or whatever, and say, hey, we would give you a great discounted rate for a suite for the whole year of the Dodger season, and whatever it may be. And for that, that might be a good way to use LinkedIn versus me saying, just me as a salesperson, just saying like, here's my code, buy some tickets. That might be one way to use it. Some people might use it that way, but the other way people can use it is in exactly connecting to a company that might want to buy suites or group sales or this or that, but the high end stuff versus you going one to one and just saying to your friends on LinkedIn, hey, I got a ticket. You want to buy a ticket, today or tomorrow. They want the bigger sales, the group sales, the suite sales. And so, yeah. I mean, definitely I think LinkedIn should be utilized more in the sales category, but Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, other platforms will use social media as like a you should love us for these reasons, and if you want a ticket, go to our link in bio, and that's just the way they're probably kind of using it these days.
So you're in the consulting world. You have Eisman Digital. That's a consulting company. What
Mhm.
does that do exactly?
Yeah. So for the last 8 years, learning about sports social media and social media in general, I've learned a lot of that. It's more than just posting. It's about strategy and content creation and posting schedules and analytics and all kinds of other content that you can't even imagine. I mean, the content goes up here. Content is king to me. It goes down to original content and branded content and curated content and other forms of content. But my business helps people understand that you need to have it's almost like a Swiss Army knife, like myself, to really understand all aspects of your social media and how to grow it. Sometimes people ask me and say, I want to grow followers. Some people say, I want to grow ticket sales, or I want to grow an online course I have. I want to grow sales in that, or I want to grow website traffic. Whatever it may be, I come up with a specific strategy for you and understand the branding part of your business, and or it could be a business, could be an athlete, whatever it is. There's similarities that cross the board with what goals you may have in mind, and I use kind of my 5 pillars of social media: branding, strategy, content, posting, and analytics, to really define how we can best reach your goals. And some clients, it's slower than others. The building up an audience is slower. Sometimes website traffic is different than others, but we ultimately, I use my expertise to try to help you understand that social media is a business of its own, and it can help your business, and it can help you as an athlete with brand awareness and brand loyalty, and other things. And so that's kind of how I play in a part: is how can social media affect your goals of your business, or you as a player? And that's
There's
what I.
also a lot of dangers of social media. So in some ways, not being on it all could be helpful for you because you're avoiding that sort of pitfall and
Mhm.
disaster. There are plenty of disasters on social media. How do you measure success and analytics? Because um, there's a lot of bots out there.
Mhm.
There's algorithms. Not all followers are created equally. I
Mhm.
could buy thousands and thousands of followers. I get hit up by that all the
Yep.
time. So how do you measure success?
Yeah, so to me, there's going to be certain metrics that will be more important than others now and in the future. One of them that I like to call is, and this is becoming more and more popular over the last year or so, average engagement per post. And what that means is, say I have 60,000 fake followers and 65,000 followers in total, but I'm only getting 1,000 people to like my post or less per post. That's not a good engagement rate. I've seen worse than that. I've seen people only get 500 or less likes on if they have 65,000 followers. So what that's showing you is this person should not is probably buying fake followers, which is affecting their numbers and their engagement rates. That's one thing that I would look and be like, there's something's off with this account if they don't have the engagement that should have. Most people should have about 2 to 5% engagement rate. That's the average these days. But if you have less than 1% or 0.00 whatever percent, then there's something off with your account, and you've either bought followers, or you buy likes, or you do something that's not organic. And on the other side, growth rate is obviously very important to me. It's not, I just grew 10,000 followers, like what, that was amazing. It was, how are you growing consistently week after week? Is it upward trend? Are you losing followers? Is it up and down? You should understand the growth rate of an account, because that basically helps you understand, are we having success this week? Are we having success this month? Am I just buying followers and it just keeps going up and up and up? Like, what's the real number on our growth and our success? And hopefully those two metrics kind of best give you understanding of where social media is not just all about likes and followers and comments and new followers, whatever, and shares, but it's more about the metrics that most companies are going to be worrying about: average engagement per post and growth rate.
Yeah. I mean, I always see this all the time. We have a contest, but you got to follow us and you got to comment.
Hmm.
That kind of skews it a little bit, but it does get people to follow. Most
Hmm.
people aren't going to follow and then unfollow if they don't win, although some people probably do. But that seems
Hmm.
like a pretty good way to get followers if you have something of value to give away.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do that. I think, um, you know, I feel like it was a Venmo or some financial account that did that. The follow for follow kind of thing, or if you follow and comment, you can win a chance of winning, $10,000, whatever it is, and those work generally. And what happens, probably, say for a big account, you get 10,000 new followers, and then maybe 2,000 of them drop off and say, I don't want to follow you anymore, and then maybe 5,000 of them forget that they're following you in the first place, and they still follow you anyways. And then a couple, 1,000 of them still interact with you. They watch your Instagram story. They like or comment or share your posts. So, well, something like that is a good way to get instant engagement. Some will follow you and keep following you. Some will drop off, which happens. But at least slowly seeing a little bit more organic than the paid bots that you're buying. When you do pay for the other parts of social media. So yeah.
And if you can buy, I guess if there's a way to buy followers in the right way, it's okay because you hear all the time if you ever watch Shark Tank, hey, what's the cost of customer acquisition?
Hmm.
So you're paying for your customers one way or another, or your followers. So I mean, I haven't found or heard of the right way to do it, or someone who's really has a good way to do it. Other than that, these people who just have a database of people who will follow you, and it's not necessarily legitimate. So maybe someday down the line there'll be a legitimate way to buy followers, and I think you have an algorithm. It changes.
Hmm.
People can game it. There's
It does.
I'm on it because I need to be on it, but I'm not crazy about it. I think there's just as much bad that goes along with good. It takes a hell of a lot of my time too.
Yeah.
And then, or you have to hire someone just to do that, which makes it difficult. That's another thing I want to ask. How do you navigate between your personal social media and your
Hmm.
business social media? And then how do you, like, even if you said, but not like someone like you who has a business for it, but someone who is a social media manager and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a social media manager job." I mean,
Hmm.
even if you were doing it for free for me, I wouldn't just give over my social media to you because I
Hmm.
need you to be able to show that you can do what I want it to do, it to sound
Yeah.
how I want it to be, reacting to everything. And I've had people to do it, and they weren't that successful.
Hmm.
Even though I was telling them, hey, you got to do this, this, and this, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they were doing this, and I'm like, that's not really what I want to put out there. So that's a lot there. But talk about the difference between individual and personal, and then
Yep.
also how do you delegate to the point where you feel comfortable that they're gonna be representing your brand the way you want to, or your account the way it should.
Yeah, for me personally, I'm probably only doing 80 to 90% for my businesses, the companies that I work for, the clients that I work for. They're getting 80, 90% of my attention throughout the week in terms of social media management and stuff. And only left behind when I see about how much myself, it's maybe 10%, 20%. Like I'm still trying, it's tough for me. Like these days, I'm trying to do an Indiegogo campaign for my book. And I have this balance of, well, I got to do a post on social media every 5 days for my book just to promote it, to get more money, to promote, the charity that I have involved and all that stuff. So that's even taking me time is to understand, well, I got to get content out there to promote my book. But then most of my brain is going towards my clients because throughout the day, I'm focusing so much on them, from 9 a.m. till 6, 7 p.m. at night, that where does my social media get left behind? And sometimes I have time here and there in the day to check some Instagram stories or just swipe on some TikToks. And that might happen here and there. But majority of the time I'm spending is focusing on other people's social media because that's what I'm paid to do. And so for you, for example, or for somebody that doesn't get that good balance between the social media manager getting success and you wanting your success, there's just sometimes that difficulty. I think some people are just not fully trained in the aspects of what you need to do to be successful in social media. Some people might be a year to 3 years out of college and be like, I grew up with it. I know what I'm doing. I know how to write. I know this and that. I know how to make a design. But do you really know what you're doing at the end of the day? Do you have the experience and the knowledge like I do, or someone else who's been 5+ years in the field that understands content really well, understands strategy very well, understands how to do numbers and analytics, understands which platforms get certain strategies versus others get those strategies. So some people will be more successful with it than others, and some people that's because their experience and how they were trained. And some people just think they know it because they lived with it or they grew up on it and they're endemic to the space. So it just depends. But you can suss that out right away in a month. I would say whether they're good or not. And if they're not good, move on and find a new one. Or if you think you can do it yourself by all means.
Yeah, I don't have a choice right now. There's a couple of factors. I don't trust anyone. I can't afford to pay someone to do it, but it's very, very time consuming.
Hmm.
I don't even do a lot. I'll do like one post a day, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. It takes up a lot of
It
your
is.
time. Brent's got a good question. Balancing the optics of too much social media. My question would be,
Hmm.
like, is there too much on a day? I see people posting 6, 7 times in a day,
Yep.
I think it's too much. I think, I would, if it was me as a follower, I'd rather see them spread that out a little bit, because first of all, your feed, or it
Mhm.
becomes a little convoluted. It becomes hard to see what's what. And then it's just like, I don't know. That's my opinion. What would
Yeah.
you say to someone? What's a good amount of content, weekly, daily,
Mhm.
and
You
spread
know,
out through the platforms?
at the end of the day, it just depends on the platform. For example, like I've talked to people about TikTok and they say you got to do 1 to 4 TikTok posts per day because one of those 4 posts could turn into 10,000 plus views. You just don't know. But in terms of like other platforms like Instagram, I wouldn't want to go heavily over the top. I'd want to only do 1, maybe 2 posts a day because um, it's 1 post is going to affect the other post. The other folks going to pass. It's just going to like same thing with LinkedIn. Like if you're doing 1 post a day on LinkedIn, that's great. But if you start doing 3 a day, something's going to left behind, and 1 post is going to not see the engagement that you're looking for because it was clouded over by another post, and that's just the way the algorithm's going to affect someone's news feed. But for example, like Twitter, you're going to want to do more and more tweets because of the whole factor of Twitter is so important in the being a part of the conversation, being a part of the community. So if you tweet 10 times an hour, that's okay, but one will do well and probably nine won't do well. But it's just about being selective with the way you tweet, selective with the way you post on certain platforms. Some will do better than others. I mean, Facebook is kind of, I don't know if it's dying for the younger generations, but they're just not using it like they used to. So
But
that
yet,
might be one
Facebook
for me.
advertising is probably some of the best
Exactly.
money you could do.
I'd rather you spend your money on Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising than spend your money on buying a bunch of bots and followers.
Yeah.
Because that might lead to the goals that you want to lead to, website traffic, more profile visits, more app downloads, whatever it may be. Facebook, Instagram ads can help you do that versus you just buying a bunch of followers.
Yeah.
On a tangent, though.
Should someone care if they have a lot more people that they're following than are following them? Does that matter?
Doesn't really matter to me. I mean, everyone used to be so vain with I've got to get the most followers, and it's all about I've got to hit, 10,000, then 20,000, then this and that. And I've had clients that say, I want to buy followers. I do want to buy followers. And I'm vehemently against that, because I just don't see the need for why can't we grow this organic? It's going to take time, but we'll get there to the goals that we want to hit on certain platforms. So, um, yeah, it just depends on the person, but obviously I would focus on what the company goals are and try to see how can these social media tools best help you out without having to pay for the fake followers and the fake, likes and all that stuff that, it just doesn't look good on social media, and you're gonna have drop offs, long term, I would say.
Yeah. What about hashtags and tagging? So the it's funny, before I started my company, you would always see, I never used hashtags. I thought they were really lame. And the reason I thought they were lame is because people were using them as sort of comedic content, right? Like, I'm going to put
Mhm.
a funny hashtag, not I'm going to put a hashtag that I want people to click on and see everything else. I still think the
Yeah.
majority of people don't use hashtags correctly. I've
Mhm.
heard like you don't want to have more than 4 hashtags on Twitter, but on Instagram, hashtag away. But
Mhm.
then you want to keep the hashtags at like under 500,000, because if you start hashtagging all the popular ones like that, they'll stun your, or I don't know, whatever they call it. It
Yeah.
won't get you the views you want. But then on TikTok, you're supposed to pick the most popular music. So how the hell do you navigate through all this?
Yeah. It all depends on the platform, to be honest. Twitter, like you said, it's good to only have 1 to 4 hashtags. Instagram, if you're a growing business, I would say, maybe do 5 to 20 different hashtags here and there. But I think you got to be very selective with the hashtags you do use. You can't just say, you're a makeup company, but you're using hashtag sports or hashtag basketball because you're just hoping that your makeup brand might convert to basketball, whatever it is, because basketball might have millions of tags being used, or whatever it may be. But being very selective and targeted the way you use hashtags, I would never put over, 15 to 20 on an Instagram post, because it just looks like it's just so long and people are just wondering what's happening. And maybe one of those hashtag hits and gets you the views you're looking for and the likes you're looking for. But that just depends. On the other side, in terms of TikTok, you be very purposeful the way you use your hashtags. You want to hashtag the For You page, for example, or FYP, or people have different versions of it. That's to help get you on that For You page. Is very important to increase your level of views, likes, comments, all that stuff if you hit that page. So, for example, I have a page. I'm an uncle. My nephew's very cute. He's 2.5 years old. I do some social media for him, so to speak. I do some funny videos with him, and I post stuff on TikTok. Not all the time, maybe once a week or so, but some will do well and some will have the traction I'm looking for, or and some won't do well and some will only get 10 views or whatever, 15 views. And I just test out to see kind of what works. And sometimes hashtags work. Choosing the right song usually works the right way if you can put it into the video. A lot of it is, honestly, TikTok is not just all about dancing videos, it's about storytelling too. So the best way to storytell is obviously important. You can kind of, I'm putting on an outfit. This outfit is going out. I'm going out. I'm doing a dance. I'm doing this or whatever it may be. But having a story involved with your TikTok is very important. Not just the hashtags and the music usage, but those are very important to it. And on other platforms, I mean, I see people using hashtags on LinkedIn all the time. Some works out well, some doesn't, but you got to be very targeted the way you use them there, but don't overdo it like you might do on Instagram posts. So
Yeah.
it all depends platform by platform, I would say, at the end of the day.
How about tagging people? I'm a big fan of tagging people that I'm talking about, not just to tag them because whatever, but
Mhm.
I mean, if I'm on LinkedIn or I'm on Instagram and I'm talking about, New Music Friday, I'm
Yep.
I'm not just going to talk about Drake's album. I'm going to tag
Mhm.
Drake. So how does that help, or is it eventually going to hurt if you start tagging too many people?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I would see the way you're tagging them, whether it's in the comments or in the post itself or in the Instagram story. See how you're tagging them. I would only be very targeted the way you tag on an Instagram story, for example. If you're talking about Drake, I'd only tag Drake. I'm not gonna tag the Raptors, the,
Yeah,
Drake's club, whatever it may be. I'm not gonna tag Drake's music records. I'm not gonna tag all that. I just focus on tagging Drake. Um, in Instagram posts, for example, on the comment side, maybe you wanna, if you're talking about New Music Friday and you did a post about it, maybe you wanna tag certain, friends or people that would like Drake or that you've talked about music about before, and you want to get their opinion on things. That's a good way for you to tag them in the comments so that they see the post they've been tagged upon, and maybe they'll comment back at you or like your post or whatever it may have. But you've got to see kind of when you do tag the right people and don't just tag endlessly and hoping that something will hit. Tag the right people in the comments or in the post itself, and don't overdo it because people start seeing that as like, wow, this person just tagged 20 people in one comment. What the hell are they doing? Like, it's getting a little over excessive. So people will notice this. So you got to be very selective the way you tag people, whether it's in a story, in a post, in a tweet, however you do it. But be very selective, I would say.
I was talking about this last night because we had this Lauren Casey who has a podcast about Weird Al and
Hmm.
um, and beer, and Weird Al actually liked one of her tweets.
Hmm.
And I told her that I did a next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day,
Hmm.
and I did an Office Space thing. And I feel like I don't know if I tagged Michael Bolton or Michael Bolton might have gone through the hashtag. He liked my thing and replied to it. Probably the most famous person
That's
that
amazing.
done it, which is funny. And then I've reached out to him, but nothing else, just that one time. If you don't have the blue check mark, they don't want to hear from you necessarily, right? Uh,
It's tough. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which is so the whole thing is stupid in my eyes, but that's okay. It's the people at the top just elevating the people at the top because it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll reply to the blue check mark, and if I said
Popularity
the same
contest.
exact
Yeah.
thing, I'd get no
Yeah.
response to it. But
Exactly.
is there someone interaction you've had that was most famous that you could find on social media,
Um,
or it's like a
well,
tweet or
what
something
was
that went viral that you would?
yeah, what was cool was I was at the, I don't know if you obviously Floyd Mayweather McGregor press conference in Brooklyn. I was there, And working for Bleacher Report at the time, I was just like, let me see what happens. I got a press pass, which was very great. And I was sitting like fourth or fifth row from the weigh-ins and them talking about the fight and doing this whole promotion. And there was a moment where um, Mayweather goes up to McGregor, makes a bunch of money rain on him. Like, it must have been $1 bills, but it was like $5,000, $10,000 $1 bills just spreading all over McGregor. And I got the video. I sent this to my people at Bleacher Report. I was like, do you guys want to post this? They posted it. They tagged me, my personal account in it. They posted on House of Highlights, which had a couple million followers at the time. Another group called The Shade Room posted me and tagged me in it, and probably 4 or 5 other accounts tagged me. I was private, my account at the time, and I probably would have gotten about 5-10,000 followers. But I just, I didn't want the popularity and the attention over. I didn't want them to tag me, but I did want the video did go viral and probably was seen at least 3 to 5 million views. That one video I did.
That's fun. The sports social media. I mean, is Barstool doing the best right now? I think a lot. They have a lot of good press. There's a lot of bad press. The whole thing with John Cusack, I thought
Mhm.
was idiotic. So is Barstool doing as good as out there? What are some other sports follows on social media that you would suggest? And then the other question is it not so bad to get ratioed? I mean, it's bad press. There's no such thing as bad press. I mean, is it?
Mhm. Yeah, 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 I mean, I've had people do, yeah, like bad press all the time. I think what's different about Barstool than every other sports social media is their loyal following is extremely loyal. They'll back them, you know. It doesn't matter if you have a shitstorm and they do something to the Rangers or something, or the Rangers players, or the Knicks or whoever it may be. They can screw with any NBA team, any football team, any professional sports team, and even if they do something wrong to them, or if they do something wrong to somebody and do something, you know, mean, so to speak, to somebody, like they're like the bullies of the classroom, which I've people, in past have kind of referred to them that way in past companies I've been to, but they have such an extremely loyal following that they'll ride or die with them through the end. They just love Barstool. They love the personalities. And actually, to be honest, what you're seeing, what I didn't write about this as much in the book, but you're seeing a little bit of a Barstool Sports effect on the whole industry in general. People are more getting their employees turning into them as talent out of nowhere. Like Bleacher Report now has people that I used to work alongside as social media people. They're being talent for videos now because Barstool let their office employees get podcasts, and these podcasts do well. And then another thing that Barstool does well that other people are catching up on is merch. Merch sales are big for every other company now because you could just print stuff on demand and you can make it about the moment. So, say someone blows a 3-1 lead and you want to make a cool graphic that goes on a shirt. Barstool does it right away. They sell $500,000 to $1 million worth of those shirts and sweatshirts or whatever, and it makes them more and more money. And now other companies like Bleacher Report and other companies are getting into it. So, who are the leaders in sports social media these days? Barstool is probably one of them. They have a good team that I've talked to over there before. They have good leadership that lets them just have fun with it, do what they want to do. It could be sports related, it could be non-sports. I would say Bleacher Report and House of Highlights are really good at what they do. Have they not evolved to where they have been in the past when I was there, when other people, creatives were there? I don't know if they've evolved enough. Maybe they've got to look at what the next evolution of their social media accounts look like. So they're still worth a follow, but are they changing the game as much as they used to in the past? And they did change the game. And I read that about in my book about the what Bleach Report was able to do, for example, was kind of a golden age of sports social media. And they created that because they did memes and they did GIFs and they did motion effects and all kinds of stuff. Are they heavily relying on that to this day? Maybe a little bit. So, but I would say the other thing that I would watch out for is a company called The Score. I like what The Score does on social media. I think they do fun and clever and creative things that is kind of like great one-off, graphics and videos and stuff like that, which I think is excellent. And then finally, I would follow smaller accounts. Josiah Johnson, I think, is an amazing person to follow. Um, Scooter Magruder, I think is his name. He's a great follow on social media.
We talked to Scooter Magruder. He's supposed to come on the Wolf Den. Big Gator fan, also a big
Yep,
Cowboy fan.
yep.
So we'll see. I, I
He's
think
great.
he's got such a big following, and I'll tell him, if he comes on the show. I'm not sure how great his content is with regards to his knowledge of, that it's a lot of Cowboys and Gators, which is fine. Um,
Mhm.
but I'd love to have that conversation with him. I know he's a fun follow, which I think is what you're
Yeah,
trying to get to.
yeah.
I try and have my content be like kind of snarky and sarcastic,
Mhm,
because I see like the accounts like Wendy's. I think Wendy's does a great
mhm.
job.
When is a good one.
They're very funny. They roast the hell out of you. They have a thing where they'd be like, "Hey, I'll roast you and just post on this." And I have to read this too, because one of my favorite tweets of all time. There was a guy who was replying to the Blue Jays, and he wrote, "Did you trade Smoke?" And the Blue Jays replied, "No, he has neck tightness and could be available to pinch it if needed." And the guy writes source question mark, and the Blue Jays go, literally us, the Blue Jays. And it's like some people have like, it's just there's a lot of dumb tweets, and I don't
Mhm.
know if it's on purpose or not, but it's comedy, just the way
Yeah,
what people put on there and how easy others make it for you to be like, make you look really silly on social
yeah.
media. Riot Fest does a good job. I don't know if you know who
Right
they are.
fest.
It's a festival in Chicago. They do,
Mhm.
they take it a little bit over the top, but they're pretty good at kind of giving you, sarcastic answers, answering
Mhm.
stupid questions with stupid answers, which I think is
Yep.
kind of what makes Twitter great.
It
Part of
does, it does.
part of it.
Yeah. No, I definitely think, Twitter is a good place, like I said, about talking community. It's like the 1v1 interaction. Someone replies, you can reply to them back, and other people will see that, and it could be funny, it could be snarky, it could be clever. Wendy's, I think, is probably top 5 in Twitter in terms of just the way people love them and the way they just interact with people and the way they show off their brand, and they're really good about it, and I'm sure who's ever running that social media account can get, a
Yeah, I
lot
would
of
think.
jobs in the future.
My favorite Wendy's tweet was when Chick-fil-A wrote something about, is there anything better than our chicken sandwich? And Wendy's wrote, yeah, our spicy chicken sandwich on a Sunday or some Sunday afternoon or something.
Oh, you see? It's
That was my
that's great.
favorite Wendy's thing. Yeah, it's hard. It's not
Like,
easy to write
no.
content like one-liners, small stuff like that. You kind of
Mhm.
look at like the Saturday Night Live of it, and that's kind of what it is. You're just trying to get this one thing that just kind of hits and gets people talking. Not easy to
Yeah.
do.
No, I what I used to say, and I wrote this about this in the book, is that sometimes when you think a post is gonna go viral and it doesn't go viral, and sometimes there's times where you don't think it's gonna go viral at all, and it does do well and does go extremely viral. So you
There's
just
no rhyme
never
or
know. You
reason.
just kinda throw stuff out to the wall.
There's no rhyme or reason. And the idiotic thing is, like, I could say the same exact thing that someone with a blue check mark says, and theirs will go viral and mine won't. And I get it,
Mhm.
right? It'll get more interaction, even if it's around even if the same people are seeing it.
Yep.
Or you could have something that's really heartfelt and something that's really good content and it gets nothing. And then some idiot, trips over a stool and falls on his head and bam, viral. And now it's like the next great thing. Part of what I don't like about social media is it almost doesn't matter. Like if you know
Mhm.
how to game the system, if you know the right thing to do this, then you're kind of rewarded for it. It almost doesn't matter how good of content you're putting out, how good
Yep.
is your product, um, how good of a company are you, and all of that. So, in some respects, that doesn't matter at all, which is a little bit disappointing. You'd want to feel like that does matter.
Yeah.
That's life, and either get on the train or get left behind. I guess is
Yeah.
really the best way to look at it, right?
Yes, totally. I mean, it's kind of a thing where I feel like social media psychology has given people the need for attention, whether it's from their friends, from other people. They want, someone out there to just give them a like, give them a follow, give them something, and they look for that, and it's rewarding for them. But is it could be a little bit sad in a way because you should be looking for more things in life than just did I get my likes today? Did I get my follows today? Did I get new shares on social media? Did someone like my post and share it with their friends and whatever, and it mattered to them? You should, I mean, obviously that's important and all, but that shouldn't be by all means kind of thing about social media. Social media is about showing your creativity, showing your voice and your personality, and showcasing who you are. And at the end of the day, if you're doing that, then you're doing the right things to in my mind, because you're being more self-aware of yourself on social media than being all about the engagement that is just vanity sometimes. And I think people got to realize that, and they got to understand that social media can be a tool that to interact with lots of people, but it can be a way to show who you are and show yourself on different platforms, and that makes people love you, makes people not care about, makes people hate you, whatever it does. But you shouldn't be overly worried about that stuff, and that's where people get too much in their head.
Yeah, so Darren Ravel, I talked about I mean, Darren
Hmm.
Ravel, very popular, very well known. I don't remember the last time I saw a post of his that had more positive replies than negative. I mean, he gets killed. It doesn't even matter what he says. And he's got some great content. I've invited him
He
on the
does.
show. He's part of the Same Here program. I hope that he'll return my email at some point. I
Hmm.
think he's got great content, but he's so hated. Is there anyone
Yeah.
else out there who just like gets such kind of negative reactions to people?
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I don't know about people as much. I mean, teams definitely do. The Patriots, or for example,
Yeah, of
or the
course.
Cowboys.
Yeah,
You look at their tweet response, and people just hate on them or something. They just, and it happens. It's nothing what much we could do. Like, some people are just I mean, there's a guy named Bob Menery that's starting to get that right now. He was all about doing the funny video over some highlight, and stuff like that. But
kind of
people have
sold
taken
out a
shots
little
at him
bit,
in the
hasn't he?
comments.
Hasn't he
He
sold out a
sold
little?
out a little bit by getting this Nelk Boys podcast, and
Yeah,
I've worked with this guy in the past, good and bad things to say, but, um, what I've seen is that he jumping on this podcast, the Nelk following, this rabid following of these guys that prank people and do other stupid stuff, don't like him, and they want him off the podcast, and they're commenting so much in these YouTube videos on the podcast that we don't like this guy, get him off, basically.
I'd love to get Bob Minner. His videos when he just was doing. I mean, back before now, it's like it's his shtick, right? But in the
Yeah.
early days, it was like I was laughing so hard. He did the one. Did you see the one with the Oklahoma horse?
Yep.
I mean, I was laughing. I watch, and Brent's watching too. He loves Menery. Brent will watch the same thing over 3,000 times. So he's perfect for Bob Menery. But some of his stuff is just it's just hilarious. And then some of it's like, oh, you're just using an F bomb, you know,
Yep.
because you can use an F bomb. I
Mhm.
like a well placed F bomb or kind of well placed thing. And I think he does a good
Yep.
job of it. Brent wants to know that I always ask about Mount Rushmore's. Give me your Mount Rushmore of Twitter people. I guess the funniest or the best. Let's say the most entertaining follow for Twitter.
Yeah. Um, a guy I mentioned earlier, I think this guy Josiah Johnson is great. I think people love his stuff. LeBron loves his stuff. Other people just love his content and what he does. I think Wendy's has to go up there. Wendy's as a brand is just far and beyond some of the other brands that are on social media. Um, Well, I don't think they're the best tweeter. I think the content is great. Nike, I think, is just does a great job of just posting amazing content.
Yeah,
They whether they use a whole 30-person team or a marketing department or a marketing agency outside of them to do this stuff, it's amazing the types of content that they post. I think it's really great stuff. Um, and then I think I read about this in the book, but back then the Los Angeles Kings were one of the best. Maybe not on the Mount Rushmore, but from a time period from 2010 to 2013, they had one of the best Twitter accounts in sports. And why was that? Because they had a couple guys who just the VPs of the company, the CEOs said, post whatever you want, have fun with it. And they were saying stuff like, when they faced the New Jersey Devils in the Stanley Cup. They said, all you guys do over there is do fist pumping. There's nothing much. There's not much to do in Jersey other than fist pumping and watching Jersey Shore. So
you
they
got to be
were
careful what you
big.
say and tweet these days. I mean, there's a Bob Menery, and he said Brent said he'd watch the Finns Detroit if Menery was doing, but it's probably true. It's probably why the man, and I haven't watched it yet, but the Manning telecast on Monday
Yeah,
Night Football is very very popular.
it's been
Uh,
good.
I gotta get to watch it at some point. Who's your dream company to do as a customer? If they say, "Hey, we want you to handle or help."
Yeah, I mean, probably be between two probably places I would say would be the NBA, which obviously I think it's just a great organization to do cool stuff for. I love basketball. I've loved it for a long, long time. I wanted to one day be the Jewish Larry Bird, but that never came true, obviously. So, but like the NBA would have been great to work for. And then the Broncos, been a fan of the Broncos for 23, 24 years now. Um, have watched almost every game for these last 20 plus years. I have the direct TV packages just to watch all these random games when they play the Jags or the Giants or whoever it may be. So I'd love to work for the Broncos, but it's honestly what I've learned from people that have worked for these places is it's tough because there's so much this balance of what can you say, what can you not say, who am I going to hurt, whose feelings
Yeah,
in the organization. So you got to be very careful the way you post on those social media accounts. But I love to work for those places because it's like it's an honor to be a part of an organization like that and to get to promote you know the organization and the company and the players and whoever else is involved.
yeah, Brent. It's actually not true what Brent says. I'm a Bronco fan, as I told you beforehand, and I absolutely thought the move to get rid of Tebow and bring in Peyton Manning was the correct one. As even though I think Tebow had a place in the NFL, I think he got a short. I think he got a raw deal, mostly from other teams, not from the Broncos, who gave him a chance to start.
Yeah.
Anyone would have been stupid to not take Peyton Manning when they could have. But
Oh, of course.
that's for another that's for another conversation. So you have this book coming out in November. How can
Mhm.
people get it?
So right now you can get it by um first off, if you want to go to my Indiegogo, which is on my Instagram page, both my personal account and my company account, go to Aaron Siegel Eisman. You can search for me there, but the account is A Siegel Eisman, ASIEGALEISMAN, or Eisman Digital. You can search for either of those two accounts. My Indiegogo is in the link in bio, or starting November 1st, November 2nd, the book will be on Amazon and people can buy it there. And, hopefully you love it and you tell all your friends and family about it because any support is much appreciated because I put a year into this book, interviewed over 100 people, and a little bit of my experience in there, but you'll learn some great things along the way. So I appreciate any help and support and buy a book today and buy one in November as well.
Yeah, what is this your first book, right?
First book, yeah. I took this Georgetown University writing course that helped me understand how to write a book really well, and it was great. And yeah, and I really and I have a journalism background, so writing in college, I've always wanted to write a book one day, and this is the first book, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Is there a book tour? Is there what are
A
you doing?
little bit, a small one. I'm talking to a PR company about going to New York City, maybe Chicago and San Francisco, about just talking to people that I've worked with over the past years, and maybe other people about sharing the book with them as well. So, yeah, I'd love to do a book tour. We'll see how it goes.
Did you get an itch to maybe write a second one if this was, the success is it's very subjective, but if this was successful in a way that even doesn't have to be like the hugest, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
bestseller, but you say, hey, this was a worthwhile experience. You say, I'd
Mhm.
like to maybe write another one.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, and people ask me, is it all about sales for books for you? To me, no, it's about being a thought leader in the space. To me, to go on podcasts, to go on virtual conferences or conferences in general and talk about what I know and my experiences and how I've learned things over the years. Would I write a second book? Yeah, of course, I think I would. I have some ideas in my head. Maybe it would be about Bleacher Report and the history of that company and where it's gone from starting from four guys that all went to Notre Dame and are high school friends together to where it is to now being a multi-billion-dollar company. That would be kind of cool. I've talked to Omar Raja, who started House of Highlights, and how he turned from an account of 0 followers to now it's hitting 35 million. And he was a big part of that over the years. And I was sitting next to him as his account was going through the roof. So there's other cool ideas I have, and maybe there's an entrepreneurial book that I have at one time that I was thinking, because there's been generations of my family that have all been entrepreneurs, and I'm glad that I've been an entrepreneur as well over the last 2.5 years. So
Yeah.
we'll see. 3 book ideas in the works.
Hey,
So we'll
look,
see.
let's get the first one out there. I think it's going to do
Yep.
well. I think you have good experience, and it's an interesting topic. I didn't
Mhm.
even get to ask you your thoughts on the social dilemma, because I
Mhm.
watched that and I was like, it was very fascinating to listen to these people who did some of the most brilliant things in the history of anything,
Mhm.
talk about how ashamed they were of it. There's social media is great, social media is bad. It's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
Do you see it getting better or worse? What's the future of social media?
Yeah, I think these companies are gonna have to start relying on more, and this is good and bad, but more content moderation. And whether that's hiring more people in-house that can kind of say, this kid's being cyberbullied. Let's watch over this and make sure that we can prevent stuff like this from happening. This person is, spreading political, propaganda or whatever. Let's figure out a way we can suppress this person a little bit. But the problem with that obviously comes with, if you're going to suppress people's voices and their right of speaking and their right of being mean to people, or trolling, or whatever it may have, you then will you lose followers, because you lose people that love you, because um they don't feel any trust
Yeah,
in you
they don't feel
anymore,
it's
what you
fair.
do,
Exactly.
and don't feel it's fair anymore. So more content moderation, more new platforms. I mean, look out for Clubhouse. Obviously, is going to be a cool one to see. Discord and Twitch, and there's one called Clash that I think is going to help change kind of be in that TikTok space in the future. More monetization stuff, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But new platforms will change, and they'll come around. The consumption habits of the audience will change, and the attention spans will change, as you'll see over time as well. So it all it's all very exciting and interesting to see what happens, but you've got to be on your toes, and you got to always have your mind out for what's next and what's the future of the industry look like.
And you'll be following it. So check out eismandigital.com, all of the social media. Go to Indiegogo, pre-order the book, or get it Amazon. November's going to be here before
Yep.
we know it. We're going to let you out of here on the same question we get everyone out of the Wolf Den on. You have one person that you could spend a day with, anyone in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Who's it going to be, and what would you guys do? We're putting a list together, and we're trying to make it happen. We've done some outreach. We've had some
Yep.
really outrageous answers. We've had some answers that I think I could probably make happen. And Brent wants to go fishing with George W., which would be great. He can tell us this anytime he comes on as a guest, which he's invited to come on anytime, and he just doesn't want to, which is fine. We don't force anyone to come on here.
Mhm.
Who are you picking, and what are you guys going to do?
I would, I talked about it earlier, but John Elwood would be the person. And we would probably he'd teach me how to throw a spiral.
Yeah.
And whether that's show me how to do a spiral or run a bootleg play, we'd be probably at the Broncos stadium just throwing catch. And that would be so cool to me. Just him throwing it back and forth at each other and showing me how to throw a spiral would be awesome.
One of my all-time favorite players in any sport is John. He wouldn't be my choice, but I'd love to spend a day with him. So maybe we can
Mhm.
all, when I make it happen, I'll have to make sure I'm there.
Yeah, that'd be
Hard to
great.
be unbiased, being that we're Bronco fans. Where should he be in the pantheon of NFL quarterbacks? Brady, I think, is going to be one.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
almost put him in number two. Maybe he's definitely top five in my book, but
he's
I'm kind
definitely
of
top
struggle to
five.
think like maybe Montana was better. But if you start to look at who he had around him as compared to what Elway had to do, I put him
Yeah.
2 or 3 probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely 2 or 3. Brady's gonna be number 1. It's Montana or Elway probably for number 2, and then who knows? I mean, there's like, obviously, people bring up Drew Brees' name. Did he win enough? Peyton Manning. Um, Maybe
I
there's
think
older
Manning,
quarterback,
Marino, maybe you got
Troy Aikman, who knows?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, either way, we're gonna put him on the list.
he's definitely 2 or 3, yeah.
Elway is a great choice. Go Broncos.
Yep.
Again,
Go
check
Bucks.
out everything. We look forward to seeing what comes next from you and following, and hopefully a lot of success for your book.
Thank
And
you.
we'll be talking. Don't forget 4 o'clock today. Come to the networking event. It's going to be a great event.
Yep.
And that's it. We got another guest tomorrow. So tune in. Have a great day, rest of the afternoon, night, wherever you're at. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks for having me.